Welcome to the Mental Health Diet, a show that dives into the connection between what we eat, self-care, and the well-being of our minds and bodies. I'm Sharifa Viola, also known as Shri, your host, and together we'll embark on an incredible journey of self-discovery and transformation. Join me as we explore the world of plant-based foods, holistic approaches, and nutrition, and how they can positively impact our mental health. I'll also be sharing personal triumphs over anxiety and providing insights into overcoming challenges and cultivating resilience. So, together, let's empower and inspire one another on our journeys towards becoming stronger, better versions of ourselves. Now, let's get started on today's episode, and thank you so much for tuning in. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Mental Health Diet. If you are new here, welcome. And if you are a returning subscriber, a returning listener, welcome back. I am so happy to have you guys join me. Like I said, as always, I just really appreciate this community that we are growing. I'm so thankful for all of my new listeners. So if you are a new listener, hey, I'm your host, Sharifa Viola, also known as Shri. And I'm also proud of myself for getting out of my head and getting back into recording and getting back into dropping these episodes because I love y'all. Y'all push me, y'all keep me going. And sometimes something that I realize about myself, and this goes for anybody, this might be really helpful for you to go forward. A lot of times we think about just ourselves. So sometimes for myself, I'm always like, well, there's times where I don't always feel like recording, or there's times where I just don't feel like doing XYZ. But there's always a bigger purpose in what you're doing. And that can look different, obviously depending on what it is that you're doing. But there's always a bigger purpose. So the reason why you're alive today, there's a purpose for that. And that's why they always say, what is your purpose in life? We literally all have a purpose. And something that I'm trying to teach myself is whatever I do, or whether it's me podcasting or running a business, it's not all about me. It's about serving others. And so that's one thing that you can really do. If there's something that you've been stagnant about or just really been putting off, stop thinking so much about yourself and think about how it can bless someone else. Just think about how you can maybe help your family. You may be able to help a friend, a family member, whoever it may be. If you really take yourself out of it, you will realize the joy in doing what it is that you have to do. So yes, so that's why, for me, I am just so grateful and just so thankful to be able to be here and spread love and spread positivity and just really help this community grow. Like I said, I took a short hiatus for a couple months, and at first it was okay, I'm gonna pause and maybe take a 1 week hiatus, and then it turned longer, and then after that I kind of just had this feeling man, I feel like I lost my podcast sauce, which I never lost it. That's the other thing too, guys. When you have some type of sauce or something in you don't lose it. It's just that you don't use it, but you don't lose it. And so that's another thing that was kind of getting me as well, was I just kind of kept thinking oh my gosh, I lost it. But listen here, you don't lose what's within you. You don't lose it. You just don't use it, but you don't lose it. So that's just a little bit of, little bit of motivation to begin this podcast off today. Also too, if you have not done so, if you're listening to this podcast, hopefully you're subscribed, whether you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts, whether you're following the show on Spotify, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the show. Make sure you go ahead and leave a rating. If you feel like this show has helped you, maybe a little bit, a lot, whatever it may be, if you feel like it will be important for others to listen to it, please go ahead and leave a rating and just, mention why you enjoy listening to the show. And yes, and that also will, help me feel good as well, just to know that I am helping other people out there. And I know I am. And like I said, that's the reason why I continue this podcast, because I know that I really want this podcast this show to be a blessing to someone, because there's power in our words, especially power in speaking positivity, there's power in speaking knowledge, there's power in just helping people to become better people. Well, helping people to become a better them. So that's what I'm here for, y'all. All right, so we just gonna hop into today's podcast episode. So as you can see by the title, we're talking about anxiety triggers. And I don't think we really talked about this that much. And sometimes I feel like this is like a topic where someone who deals with anxiety may not want to talk about it, whether, like, say for instance, we're talking about triggers that may lead to onset of depression, whatever it may be. It could be emotional eating triggers, whatever it may be. But today's topic, I wanted to talk about anxiety triggers and be like, listen here, sis, we not doing that no more. Okay. And I think sometimes when we have anxiety triggers, we don't know how to handle them. And for me, I will say, it's like, as I'm going through this journey of personal development, so I am in a forever season, because I'm not just going to say I'm in a season. I am in a forever season of personal development. I've been on this whole personal development journey for years. And it started, honestly, I started listening to this guy named Eric Thomas. And shout out to Eric Thomas. And he's a motivational speaker, but he had a lot of personal development series and things like that. And so I really started this personal development lifestyle years ago. I want to say probably back to 2014. I want to say I started this personal development series, personal development within my life. And so, with me, I feel like anxiety triggers is basically one of those things that we don't like to talk about. Especially if you deal with anxiety, it's like you feeling it, you're going through it, and it's like, how do I get rid of it? But we also don't like to talk about the triggers. But the crazy thing about the trigger is that is basically the root of the problem. And something that I'm learning now within my personal development season is, like, we have to get to the root. Like, what is the root of the problem? Like, what is going on? Like, why are we feeling this way? Like, where is this coming from? Is this coming from like a childhood experience? Is this coming from something that you read? Like, where is it coming from? And honestly, y'all, digging up the root, if you think about digging the root of something, it is always hard. Digging up the root and trying to figure out, basically what the root cause of a problem is always hard, but I feel like at the end it is very rewarding. I can't say I'm 100% on that journey with figuring out the root of everything, because there's still some things I'm trying to figure out, like what's the root of it. But I will say, most of us, if we really, really think back or think about whatever may have occurred in our life, we tend to know what the root is. It's just that we don't want to face it. So today we're going to talk about, anxiety triggers. And we're going to basically talk about how to basically get rid of them and how to overcome them. And if you are in a situation where if you are like in a stressful situation, I want to talk about ways to just kind of diminish them. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it is hard. Coming from someone, I've dealt with anxiety, and I still do things. I still do deal with anxiety. It is very hard in the moment, but one of the biggest things that have helped me a lot through this journey is really recognizing, what can I do? What are some practical steps? Not no complicated steps. What are some practical steps that I can take when I am going through this anxiety, or where I feel like I'm triggered? What are the practical steps that I can take to get over it? So first, we're going to talk about basically defining what an anxiety trigger is. So anxiety triggers are situations or events that make you feel anxious or stressed. So whether it's you may be going into the workplace, it can be going to a concert, it can be being around a lot of people, it can be something like taking the elevator, it can be being in an enclosed place. Whatever it is, basically it is defined as situations or events that make you feel anxious or stressed. All right, and so why are we talking about this? We're talking about this because anxiety triggers can have a huge impact on our daily lives. So triggers can disrupt our peace and affect our overall mental well-being. So if there's something that is triggering for you, like a certain type of anxiety that you have, a lot of times, even for me, what I'll just do is I'll just avoid the thing at all costs. But the thing, what I notice about it is that as I try to avoid the thing, the trigger or the situation or place, I feel like it just makes it worse. In the moment, it's like instant gratification. It's in the moment, it's instant gratification. But the end result, I'm always sad or I get more depressed. So that's the thing about anxiety triggers and figuring out what the problem is. It's like you really have to just get to the root of it or figure out how can you overcome this anxiety in the moment, or how can you even recognize the triggers. And so for me, one of the things that I am really, really proud about myself is that last year, it's actually going on right now. Oh Lord, InvestFest. One of the things that I kind of was always like, not always, but there was a situation that I was in years ago, that kind of made me kind of little, like, just not too thrilled to be in large crowds. And so me not being thrilled to be in large crowds, I end up developing this anxiety being around lots and lots of people. So last year I was so proud of myself, because I went to an event that had 12,000 people there. And when I went there, yes, my brain was like, what are you doing here? But it felt so good to be able to conquer that anxiety. Even though when I was there, I did have little bouts of anxiety. I was anxious. But y'all, I put on game face, and like, you would not have known nothing. Like, I put on game face. I was confident, and I was able to overcome those triggers because the event was the trigger. That was a trigger, being around the people, but I was able to overcome it. And things that I just told myself was like, I just told myself, make sure you remain confident. So I portrayed that I was very confident. I am a confident individual, but something that I noticed, especially with anxiety, the more confident that you appear and act, even if you got to fake it till you make it, the better you will feel, for me personally, within your anxiety. Now, there's been times where I've dealt with crippling anxiety. I even used to have panic attacks when I was younger. I just was really proud of myself. And that's the thing, like, you just really got to walk and talk yourself through it. And I'm telling you, in the moment, it doesn't feel good. But at the end, I'm like, even to this day, I'm so proud of myself. And then after that conference, 2 months later, I decided to go to another conference all by myself, and that was maybe about 300 or 400, 500 people. And I still, same person, still the same anxiety, whatever, about the crowds, but I was proud of myself. And so what you'll notice is that as you continue to fight through those triggers and continue to fight through those situations and events, you'll notice that you're overcoming them. When I go through these events, I don't always feel perfect. Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to say always. I don't feel perfect. I still have that same anxiety. I still have those same thoughts, but I will say, through this personal development journey and through and getting guidance now. So now I have extra guidance for my anxiety. I have extra support. I am able to now really navigate life and be able to overcome these triggers, step on those triggers. And when triggers happen, I'm able to figure out, okay, let me try this technique or let me do this to overcome it. So that's what I'm here today for, is I want to talk about 3 ways to move past your anxiety. Okay. And so, this is for anyone that has ever found themselves trapped in a cycle of negative thoughts. When anxiety hits, like I said, for me, I still sometimes have those negative thoughts, but it's really about just changing your mind and basically rewiring your mindset, basically to think positive thoughts. So basically, you want to rewire your mindset so that those thoughts can turn into opportunities. And that's something that I really never thought about either. So think about it. Try to figure out a way that you can to rewire your thoughts so that they can turn into opportunities. I know, hard to say, especially when you're having anxiety about a situation or whatever. It's like, okay, but if you really think about it, even now myself, every time I had anxiety or whatever, I could have turned it into opportunity. Now, I mean, I can't really think of what opportunity I would turn it into at this moment, but just start trying to rewire your brain. And so also, instead of dwelling on what could go wrong, focus on what could go right. Okay. So so the first step, I'm so sorry. I know we usually do like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first one, we're talking about rewiring your brain. So ever find yourself trapped in a cycle of negative thoughts when anxiety hits? Well, it's time to flip the script. So as I mentioned, rewiring your mindset means taking those thoughts and turning them into opportunities. Instead of dwelling on what could go wrong, focus on what could go right. This simple shift can change the way you perceive triggers, making them less daunting and more manageable. Let me repeat this again because this is helpful and this is why I've repeated this about 3 times. Rewiring your mindset means taking those thoughts and turning them into opportunities. Instead of dwelling on what could go wrong, focus on what could go right. Y'all, that right there is a bar. This has been a game changer for me, y'all. Something that I've been implementing that actually my therapist actually brought up to me. If y'all check back to 2 episodes ago, I did talk about different ways, to help yourself mentally. And I mentioned it before, but one of the things is that you can also seek help or support through a therapist. And I think sometimes, there definitely, especially within our Black culture, there is definitely a stigma, or any culture, there's definitely a stigma with seeing a therapist. But I will say, I suggest seeing a therapist if everything is okay. Like, when I see my therapist, I wasn't at my wits end, whatever you want to call it, but I just felt like, okay, I think it's time to talk to someone. But I would say, even if you feel like everything is fine, I really highly suggest seeing a therapist, because it's fine to talk to your family or your friends, but sometimes I feel like sometimes your family and friends will agree with you versus a therapist will be they don't know you, so they're hearing your story and putting their input based off of what you're telling them and then their thoughts. So something that my therapist told me about was to use something called the best case scenario. So like I said, instead of dwelling on what could go wrong, focus on what could go right. So she told me basically focus on the best case scenario. So a lot of times we focus on the worst case scenario. We think about well, if I go to this event, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a panic attack, or I'm going to go to this event, it's going to be 12,000 people. I'm going to be sweating, but it's best case scenario. So the flip is okay, I'm going to go to this event, and I am going to be able to stand in line, register for this event. I will feel fine. I will be able to find comfortable seating. When I go there, I'm going to meet about 10 other people. We're going to be able to chat. So basically, this has literally, y'all, I kid you not, this is something as small as this. I'm going to tell y'all this. I'm going to share a little story with y'all. So I actually went to church. My first time in my life, I actually went to church by myself. For the first time ever, y'all. I know it sounds crazy, maybe to some, but I generally, I used to go to church and I would go with my parents, or I would go by myself, but someone would be there. Whether it was my parents, whether it was my siblings, someone would be there. But this was my first time going to church, whatever, by myself, without anyone telling me, without me even knowing who was at the church. This is a church that I don't even attend. I've been there 2 times, so this was my 3rd time, but no one knew me, didn't know nothing. So I did have a little anxiety about going. Well, I'm not even gonna say little. I did have anxiety about going. I've been putting this off for years, y'all. Literally for years. And I was like, this is something that I need to do for myself. So long story short, I literally, what did I do? So yeah, long story short, I had this best case scenario. I said, well, best case scenario is that I get there, I'll be able to find a nice parking spot right in front of the church. I'll be able to get in, I'll meet some other people within the church, and then it'll be over. Y'all, I kid you not. So that was the best case scenario. Sharifa would have been worst case scenario. I will have to park down the street. Then as soon as I go to church, and go in there, it's gonna be people looking at me. Then it's gonna be packed, and then I'm gonna have to sit up in the balcony. That was worst case scenario, Sharifa. That was how I used to be okay, worst case scenario. Do y'all know that best case scenario that I had actually happened? I went to that church service, found me a parking spot in front of the church, went inside the church, sat down, and yes, I did have a little bit of anxiety there, but I told myself, I'm like, girl, you good. You are in the Lord's house, okay? You in the best place you can be. And y'all, I did it. Because I stopped dwelling on what could go wrong, and instead I dwelled on what could go right. And so when wrong does happen, okay, handle it, but let's start focusing on what goes right. So the first step to overcoming and beating those anxiety triggers is you want to rewire your mindset. Rewire it. That's the biggest thing, y'all. This has been the biggest game changer for me. Rewire your mindset. Get out of that fixed mindset that things always got to go wrong, or you have the worst case scenario. What if it goes right? Think about dating. If you're single, if you're dating somebody, for my ladies, if you're dating a guy, stop thinking like, okay, when I go to this date, he ain't gonna open the door for me, or he ain't gonna pay for my food. I probably ain't gonna like him. He probably only want to talk to me for this reason. No, be like, when I go on this date, he gonna open up the door. He gonna open the door for me, the car door for me. He gonna pay for my meal. We gonna have a nice time. He gonna smell good. He gonna look good. Like, let's have the best case scenario. He's gonna text back after the day. We're gonna see each other. Like, and I think a lot of times our brain is wired to be negative. And honestly, I blame that. Honestly, some of it on society. I feel like the negativity wins, especially with the news. It's so much negativity on the news. You don't find really anything positive. And by the time it's positive, it's like the last 5 minutes. And by the time that happens, no one's even listening to the news. And so we have to really rewire our brain, because we live in a society where negativity wins. Having a positive mindset really doesn't win. Having a positive mindset ain't cute, because if you think about it, I know for myself, with my personality, a lot of people be like, girl, you doing too much. Why you so nice? Why you this and why that? I'm like, why not? And that says a lot about society. So that means if people are telling me I'm too nice and this and that, that means the rest of the people around them must be negative. I don't want to be negative. I've been the negative person before. I've been a complainer. I don't want to be that. And so you have to really rewire your brain. And who cares if people walk away from you? People don't like you. You're not meant for them. So by the time you rewire your brain and you're able to beat these anxiety triggers, and you're able to have these better thoughts and better, because I'm telling y'all, people not gonna like that. Your new mindset, they not gonna like it. Because so many people are so used to gossiping and things going wrong. Like, girl, if we go to this event, girl, ain't nobody gonna be there. Be like, if we go to the event, there might be a lot of people there, and we may actually meet some people. I'm telling y'all, rewiring your brain has been a game changer for me. Literally, these past couple weeks have been a game changer, and I know it could be a game changer for you. So number 2, the next thing you want to do is embrace your inner zen. So what you want to do is this. So you want to picture this. Basically, you're in the middle. Let's see. Okay, you're in the middle of New York City. Okay, you're in the middle of New York City, just standing in the middle of New York City at Times Square, right? But basically what you're going to do is, like, with all, like, Times Square is a lot of times so many people, lots of tourists and just a lot of people there. What you want to do is you want to tap into the power of quick relaxation techniques. So basically, I mean, that's not a really good, is that a good example? Like, in the middle of Times Square. Okay, but you're basically in the middle of something where there's like a lot of chaos. So you want to tap into the power of quick relaxation techniques. So deep breathing and mindfulness might sound simple, but they're secret weapons against anxiety triggers. So if you're in a situation where there's a lot of people, let's say like a conference, or you could be in the middle of Times Square, because I actually know someone, this lady that I know said that her daughter gets anxious when she's around a lot of people in like a big city like New York City. So for instance, like her daughter, if her daughter is in the middle of New York City in Times Square, what she can do is she can maybe step back, maybe go inside of a building, and she can practice deep breathing and mindfulness techniques. And this is something that I've always like, I will be honest, like, this is something that I've never really like was like, oh, I gotta do it, because I'm like, it's too simple. And that's the thing, a lot of things that are simple we don't do, because we think that life has to be hard. Life does not. Listen, y'all, life does not have to be hard. And this is me telling me, like, to myself as well, life does not have to be hard. Like, we literally be making life hard. And one of the things we making life hard with is by having these worst case scenarios and thinking that something always bad is going to happen. But yeah, so a simple technique such as breathing and mindfulness, it might sound simple, but these are secret weapons against anxiety triggers. So just a few minutes of mindful breathing can center your mind and body and help you face triggers with a clear head and a calm heart. So not only will it clear your head, but if your heart is racing and you're getting anxious, it will also slow down your heart rate as well. So next time you're in an environment and it's like, oh my gosh, it's chaotic, try a simple deep breathing exercise. If you carry an Apple Watch, I know the Apple Watch has a breathing exercise on there. If you have the Fitbit, I know they have like a breathing exercise on there. If you don't do that, you can just do your own breathing exercise. But I will say it is a little bit hard sometimes in a moment if you're dealing with anxiety or you're in a triggering environment, because it's like that's the last thing you want to do is start breathing in and out, because you're like your mind is creating all these thoughts. But if you do the deep breathing, what it's going to do is going to help eliminate those thoughts. So those thoughts that you're having is going to diminish, because now instead of focusing on what's around you and the situation, now you're focusing on your breath. Your inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So you're now focusing on your breath. So the next thing that you can do to help you with your anxiety triggers is eat a healthy diet. More so, I would say a plant-based diet. So your plate isn't just about satisfying hunger. It can be your armor against anxiety too. Let me repeat that. Your plate is not just about satisfying hunger. It can be your armor against anxiety too. So, have you ever, and we mentioned this before, but have you ever thought about the connection between what you eat and how you feel? Guys, we talk about this all the time. So, basically, plant-based foods are your friend. Okay, we mention this all the time. Plant-based foods are your friend. So if you think about it, like for myself, if I'm having anxiety or if I'm feeling down, well, especially if I'm having anxiety, for me personally, I don't go and run and eat trashy food because I feel like it makes it worse. A lot of times I like to eat healthier foods. So if I have like a speaking engagement to do, which I haven't done since I was like in college, but if I had a speaking engagement to do, I wouldn't opt for like a burger or something like that. I would opt for something like a smoothie. I would opt for like a salad. I would opt for something that is going to boost my mood and make me feel good, because those foods, those processed foods, y'all, they kill your mental health. Literally, they kill your mental health. So foods like leafy greens, nuts, and whole grains are like mini superheroes for your brain. They're packed with nutrients that can actually ease anxiety symptoms, giving you the resilience to stand up to your triggers. Okay? Because listen, bye-bye. Listen, we ain't doing that today. So I'm just going to recap the 3 things that you can do to overcome those anxiety triggers. The first one is you want to rewire your mindset. The second one is you want to embrace your inner zen. So that's the deep breathing work. And then 3, you want to make sure that you keep your plate full of plant-based foods. Okay, y'all? So I really, really want to encourage you all to implement these things into your daily lives. You don't have to do everything at once. I promise you, you don't have to do everything at once. I don't do everything at once. There's some days where I'll do one thing. There's some days where I don't do nothing. And I'm like, sis, you got to get back on board. There's some days where I'll do all 3 of these things. But you know, it's not a race. What they say is not a race, it's a marathon. So don't feel like you have to do everything at once. So these tips that I give you each week, don't ever feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta eat all these foods at once. Like, that's not how it works. That's not how it worked for me. Like, even for me, I've been a pescatarian for 6+ years. So I haven't had meat in 6 years. It was not something that I did do cold turkey, so that was a lie. I did do cold turkey, but as the years went on, I've learned about different foods that I can eat. So basically, when I first started out, I wasn't eating like healthy food, avocados and things like that. I had to learn as the years went on what type of foods to eat. So you just want to make sure, you want to implement these things into your daily lives. And just also remember, like, don't feel like you can't live life no more. That's something that I used to like feel and beat myself up like, oh my gosh, like I can't do this XYZ no more because I deal with anxiety in this area. Like don't let that stop you. I will say one of the biggest things takeaway I will say is just rewire, you can take away everything, but rewire your brain and tell yourself that you can do it. Create a better scenario for yourself. Give yourself the best case scenario. Think about everything that could go right and not so much what could go wrong. Whatever goes wrong, okay, deal with it there. Like for me, when I was at that church service and I had a little bit of anxiety, I became very thirsty. Now, hence I didn't drink enough water that morning before church, but I became thirsty. But the nice thing is that when I became thirsty, I went over to like this little booth and they had water. So I went and drank water. So that wasn't part of my scenario when I had the best case scenario, but it was okay. And so a lot of times we don't understand, like, we don't realize that, like, things will be okay. When something happens, we'll tackle it, but it doesn't have to be the worst thing. So y'all, let's see. So you already know, I always have to end it off with the quote of the week. So today's quote of the week is focus on the progression and not the outcome. Once again, it's focus on the progression and not the outcome. So do not forget, y'all, if you have not done so, make sure you go ahead to subscribe for more wisdom and more keys on ways to handle life challenges. Because listen, you are not alone. You are speaking to a warrior. You're speaking to someone that is living these things that I'm talking about. Listen, y'all, I'm not making this stuff up, okay? So make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Tell your friend, okay? Tell your boo, tell your bae, tell your mom, tell your dad. Tell somebody. Share this podcast. Tell your job, okay? Tell somebody. But yeah, so once again, today's quote of the week is focus on the progression and not the outcome. Don't forget, y'all. I was gonna say, I don't know what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, don't forget, y'all. I don't know. I was gonna say, stay blessed. Stay blessed, stay encouraged, stay uplifted, and just remember, once again, that you are not alone. So thank you once again to everyone, and I will see all of you beautiful people next week. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Mental Health Diet Podcast. I hope you enjoyed our discussion on nourishing your mind and body. If you found value in today's episode, I would greatly appreciate your support. One of the best ways to help us grow is by leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute, but it makes a world of difference in reaching more listeners who can benefit from this content. To leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, simply follow these steps. Open the Apple Podcast app on your device, which you already probably have it up if you're listening to me. Click on the show to open the podcast page, which you probably already have up once again. Scroll down until you see the ratings and review section. Tap on the stars to rate the podcast, and if you have an extra moment, leave a brief review sharing what you love about the show. Your feedback means everything to me, and it helps this podcast to continue to bring you valuable content each week. Remember to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode. Thank you for being a part of the Mental Health Diet community. I can't wait to catch you on the next episode. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay blessed, and keep nourishing your mind, body, and soul. Period.